We've already been on the bench technically for 7 months, so what's another couple of weeks? What's another couple of weeks? We've got to wait till we get all the information and make the proper decisions then. But it's impossible to guess. We don't know what's going to happen.
Today on Dirty Linen, we are chatting to Steve Nairn. He's a chef at Omnia in South Yarra, the corner of Toorak Road and Chapel Street. The restaurant hadn't been open long before everything went a little bit haywire. Steve was also due to open other restaurants in the same capital development. I don't want to even start by talking about that though, Steve. Though, first of all, welcome. Thanks for coming along, having a chat.
Thank you. I
want to start by asking you about the seasons. I know how connected you are to farmers and to produce and how much you love the seasons coming along, rolling through. And I just wonder what it's been like to sort of miss one season after another as Melbourne has gone through lockdown.
Yeah, it's been, that's it's been a bit of a shame. You're always thinking ahead, thinking for the next thing. Like, right now we've got asparagus, but asparagus is very difficult to translate into the kind of takeaway format to really do it justice. Which is a big shame, which is not only for us, but, I get my asparagus from, a bit of a legend, John Hobson from Janella Farm. Him and Pam, I think, have been on the go, probably, I think John's actually 3 generations of asparagus farming. He only has a couple other products, which is snow peas and then baby corn. So for John, I think that's an absolute killer. I saw him on last Saturday at the farmers market where I was picking up 1 box, but usually I would be flying through 8 or 9. So it's a shame, and the volume's just not there, and some things don't translate, and it feels like if we do get back open, we'll just kind of be going. Who knows when it will be. So, we'll have missed absolutely plenty. Like mushroom season was a big damp squid.
Yeah, it's really sad, and it's something that not everybody wouldn't really click for everybody. But I remember running into you at the St Kilda Farmers Market last year, I think it was, and it was baby corn was coming through, and you were so excited, and it. It's a dish that I remember eating when you were at the Estelle, and you really make it's a real showcase. You really dig into the possibilities of produce, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, like when it's like anything when you have a kind of personal relationship with your suppliers. Like another great guy. For instance, you actually understand. You're talking to them months in advance. Like I'm already talking to Hobble, we call him, about the baby corn coming. But the sad thing is, he called me a few weeks ago and he's like, I don't know if I'm going to put it in because it takes up a lot of space. It's a lot of work. It needs to be maintained. It's not something I can sell really anywhere else. I'm talking about these baby sunrise corns. So that impact, you see that spiraling through. But I really do miss the old produce.
Yeah, that's really sad to hear that he might not be putting it in, but you can understand why. I mean, it's what is the point of planting something if there's not going to be that demand for it? But I suppose what it makes me think is that as we reopen, there's going to be a bit of a flattening out of what's available. It's going to be, there'll be that other layer of difficulty to differentiating yourself as a chef and as a restaurateur.
That's for sure. Like if you think of just the general varieties, I can't imagine there'll be too many tomato growers going, we're going to put in this because I know this guy over here is a big, loves green tomatoes, and they'll probably run that for the whole season. I know such and such over there uses, power loads of black Russians. I'll put them in. All that lovely flexibility that growers, when they're in communications with us, do purely for us. Talking small batches here. It's not fields and, pony loads of produce. They're really catering to us. So I think all that we won't see any of that this year, unfortunately.
So you think there'll be a bit of a blanding out of menus? And perhaps higher prices? Like, what will happen?
Well, what you're talking when we reopen, when we're allowed to reopen.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, premium grade asparagus is really no different to, you know, a piece of meat. If you think, you know, it's still up there between, you know, your $15 to $20 a kilo, depending on, I'm talking for the absolute glamour, primo, top quality products. It's the same price as, you know, sometimes is your main proteins of beef and, you know, lamb, etc. So I can't imagine people will be, you know, you think of a tasting menu place where you can maybe do one section of the menu that has 3 or 4, maybe even 5 hits of, say, tomatoes. You might see it in, you know, a tart formation. There might be a juice, a broth. There might be some, you know, a kombucha. There might be, you know, it might start green and then go in. I can't imagine there'll be as much of that because we're not operating under normal circumstances. We're doing things like takeaway. We're not. There's no, to tell the story that majority of the time those products demand. We don't have that that face-to-face, you know, connection anymore. Like the people are placing orders through, you know, websites, and then they come and they pick it up. So it will be a lot. It was very hard to be able to get that over the line.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we've skipped over a lot in this conversation, but I did want to start with produce because I know it's so central to how you think about cooking for people. But tell me where you're at right now. Like, tell me how you're feeling about Omnia, about the takeaway thing, and about looking ahead to reopening, hopefully before too long.
Well, you know, obviously it's not ideal, the situation we're in, but you know, you got you know, you got to look at the positive things that have came through all of this. Like I look back to when this really, for me, started kicking. You know, really realizing that this was something that was pretty serious. It was all the way back in Formula One. You remember that the Grand Prix got cancelled. We were actually doing an event. We had I think it was for charity, and Scott Pickett was doing 3 or 4 courses in front, and we were doing the dessert that Scott, I think, it, you know, set up. It was we were going to do, you know, me being Scottish, and I think it was for Sir Jackie Stewart's charity, him being Scottish. So we were going to do a Cranachan. It was 600 portions. We were all ready to go on the Friday morning. And then we got the call at like 7:30, 8 o'clock. Well, that's, you know, it's cancelled. So we got like 600 portions just gone. So then after that, you know, things really started to move pretty quickly. And I mean, if you think, you know, if you actually look back how much restaurants have achieved and what they've done, it really is pretty inspiring. You know, you remember there was the fear and the shock at the start. I remember another big graphic thing was, you know, it was almost like a movie. You know, I lived in Prahran. I lived quite close to the job centre. You know, the Centrelink. You know, the queue was around the block, so it was things were moving so fast that, you know, there was that fear and the shock of shit. You know, what's going on, and then we had, you know, the really difficult part of telling, you know, all our team. We had a large team. We were doing a lot of covers. We were fortunate that we're really busy. And then obviously we had to sit all the team down. You know, this is what's happening. Things, you know, we hung on for that. I think it was like 1 or 2 weeks, and then then the government obviously shut all the restaurants down. But it's not just like on Wednesday that's it, it's closed. There's the stuff leading up to that, the stuff after that, from the deep cleaning, the packing down. That's bloody hard work when you're feeling that you don't know what's coming next, and there's a lot of uncertainty, and you're ripping out an extraction system, you know, deep cleaning your whole area, not just your kitchen, but all the stuff that's behind the scenes. That's pretty, and then you remember there was all the panic buying, like, you know, can't get a toilet roll, dry goods are going crazy. Yeah, you know, then there is, what else was there? You know, the comfort food explosion. Everyone's, you know, lasagnas and braises, takeaway. You know, the restaurants just pivoting very, very quickly. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of positives to look at that, to like where we are now. You know, it's been, how many months has it been? It's been like 6-7 months.
Yeah, 7 months. It's
7 months.
It's a long time, and that's a lot of emotion to expend through that period, and energy in all that change.
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely, you know, huge amounts. But but again, like, you know, I try to be very positive in my teams. I don't like any negativity or because the job's hard enough without that. It really is brutal. Without constant, if you're in the doom and gloom and this is shit and this isn't good and this isn't, you don't actually see all the amazing creativity. Like if you scroll through Instagram and you see all the stuff that's going on, all these side hustles people are doing. It's wild. It's so creative. It's pretty inspiring. From like magazines, there's people doing like cheesecakes, tarts. I even seen flower arrangements, hot sauces. Cocktail batching, online cooking classes, demos, tea tastings, collabs. What other industry responds like that? Although yes, it has been a really tough periods. There has been some amazing stuff as well that really shows you this vast skill set of the industry. That's not just people putting food on plates and pouring wine in glasses. Like we're a remarkable group of people. It's pretty, although it is brutal. Yeah, there is some inspirational stuff to take away from that. Great, people are very resourceful.
They are, and I suppose it's been a time when people have really had to dig deep, and you have seen the depth that's been revealed. Like there is, so much resilience, so much creativity, and also I think a lot of really welcome collaboration.
Oh, absolutely, and I even think between people running the restaurants, journalists, it's been a really united front. I think long may that continue, where people are not so much are actually shading and working as a community rather than in competition. They're actually coming together and being like, hey, we need to back each other. We need to work together to not just to get out of this, but to make sure that this is still an exciting, fantastic path as a young person to get into the industry. It's not a big turn off. It's not, people, I hope there's, people are still looking at the great things that you can do within the industry and not looking at this and going, nah, I'm done.
Yeah, I hope so too. Steve, you lead, you're a leader, you employ people, and I'm sure they're asking you at the moment, I'm sure they've been asking you for months, what's happening next? What can I expect? When am I getting some more hours? It must be really hard for you to be living through the uncertainty that we all are, but at the same time to be trying to give people, keep that hope alive for your team.
Yeah, it is, but I think that we are, I'm especially lucky that we have we got a very, very good team and we've been, as transparent as you possibly can. And I think at first it was very difficult for people to accept, but people can see when they're here, they know that we're going as hard as we can. We've moved with every change. We're trying to generate as much revenue as possible. We're trying to fix things that don't cost behind the scenes. We're trying our guts out, and they're giving 100%. We've even within our own teams, we've seen it. Yes, it is difficult, but they're motivating each other as well, which is pretty. As the leader, it's pretty inspiring to see that as well. It makes you pretty proud when you see, like everyone has down days. You get a day where you come in, you're like, geez, you're reading the news and everything's negative. Then you bring, now there's, the American elections coming in, which is more chaos. And it can grate you down, but you do see people picking each other up, giving each other, a socially distanced hug. People are helping each other where they need to be, and people have good days and bad days, and rather than just walk away from the situation, people are accepting that, it's all right to be in a bad mood that day because this is just really difficult times. People have no idea what's going on. Every family is affected. It's not just the team that you work with. You're going home and, I'm sure people are, because, certainly I speak to people all back in the UK where I'm from Glasgow and from, other places where I've worked, etc. And everyone's doing it tough. We've had staff members have had, family members die and been in, really difficult circumstances, unable to attend funerals, people going back overseas, their Australian dreams are dashed. It's, I think people, although yes, they want to get back, they understand the process that this is not in our control, and we are really we're really trying to crack on and do as much as possible.
Yeah, well, let's talk about cracking on and the short-term future. Everyone in Melbourne is wondering about reopening, when the case numbers are going to be low enough for that to be safe. How are you feeling about that process? And
I don't think it's going to be on the 19th of October. Because I don't think it's going to be on the 19th of October. Because if we're going by these guidelines that we're supposed to be getting to a certain number of cases, doesn't look like we're going to be able to achieve it. I just think that there's just not. It's very difficult for restaurants. They're not Fortune 500 companies. They're not. They don't have this mega infrastructure where you can have one department just go and analyze this section, one department go and analyze. We have to wait until we get all the information properly, mark it all out to the letter of the law, implement all these procedures and policies, then somehow figure out if this is actually worthwhile doing.
So you feel like it's not, you're not going to start putting things in place because you're predicting a certain thing. You're going to wait until you've got all the information to sift through?
Yeah, 100%. Because we've done all the guessing. We've done all the, we are already, chefs and service teams are all very creative people. We're always looking. We're always looking at, again, comes back to the seasons. What's in season? What can we use now? How can we apply it? We've started bouncing down scenarios, but until we get that solid, concrete information, how many people are we allowed? What's the what is the 2-hour exercise or meeting up with people? Is that all going to be gone? What's the time? How does it work? Is there going to be a lunch trade? Like if people are working now from all from their homes. The majority of civilians are working from home, and are they going to? They're not in those pods anymore where there's the 3 people in the office are going to go here for lunch. So there's a lot of uncertainty. So I think we need to just slow it down, wait until we get all the information, and just make actually well-informed decisions, and make sure that we're not going full throttle. And then to have to constantly keep tweaking, it's very difficult. So we will definitely be, look, we're eager to open, but we need all the facts.
Yeah, so you'd rather just take things a little bit slower, sit back, wait and see how it all shakes down, and then just go full steam ahead once you know what it is that you can do, at least for the next stage of business.
Yeah, because it's like double handling. If we were to just go and take loads of reservations right now, loads of requests. We need, there's all sorts of, then you almost feels like you're letting your guests down again. You got to contact them, shift them around, move them around. I think that we've already been on the bench technically for 7 months. So what's another couple of weeks? What's another couple of weeks of sticking with the takeaway? We do the bagels. They've gone very well. So we've got to wait till we get all the information and make the proper decisions. Then it's impossible to guess. We don't know what's going to happen. Plus, again, you can't even roster. You can't prepare a roster. You can't prepare any rostering. You can't calculate anything. It's very hard to make a particular offering when you don't know what exactly is going to happen. The weather is a massive thing as well. You saw it, was it last week? It was 28 degrees on Sunday, then 9 degrees on Monday.
Yeah, it doesn't make it simple, does it? And you don't really have an outdoor area there.
No, we don't. We have a little bit of thing. I see it way more as something that we'll do would be more, boozy, more drinks, snacks, that kind of thing. But each space will lend to their own. Like if you've got a beer garden or a back area that you can actually provide some form of service where there's not constant interruption. Like if you're right on the footpath, right on the, what food suits to that? Money's tight for a lot of, for everyone. It's not just within the hospitality industry. There's loads of industries that have been smashed. How much money are people prepared to spend on the street? I don't know. I think it'll be more alcohol focused. I think that's how I see it, because it's not the same experience. Alfresco's, it's unless you have some well planned, thought out area with all your point of sales, your everything the front of house team need, from a proper detailed waiters station. Then you got all the added COVID tracking, COVID safety, COVID cleaning. How do you deal with people just walking past, seeing it, wanting to become a part of it, even though they're not? But there's all sorts of little things that go in that put not only the guests, but more importantly, the staff at risk. So we need all the answers. I can't see how we could do it any other way right now.
Yeah, and I think you're right about the experience that people are going to want in certainly in some outdoor settings. If I think about sitting on the pavement on Chapel Street with cars going past and trams rattling by, and if someone comes out and tries to, tell me about the how the asparagus was grown, it just might feel like that's not quite where I'm at. That might not be what I'm there for. It's
where are we at with the masks? I don't know about you, but I can't hear anything anyone's saying. There's so many questions that really need answered before we can give chefs and restaurant people. We always want to give the best quality experience possible. The best, it's the same when you write a menu. You want to be buying the best quality produce at your price point. Like, that's the thing. If you're at that, you're looking at your spend per head, and you want to give the guest the absolute best you possibly can. Takes time. There's tweaking that needs to be done. The suppliers are bleeding as well. They're down 90% as well. It's not the ripple effect is not just what you see in the restaurant. It's all these suppliers that they're waiting on us. So things will take a little bit of time to tweak in. Never mind before you look at things like outdoor furniture. What do you do about rain? That's going to be, if it's a beautiful sunshine, then all of a sudden it's rain. You've put 2 or 3 front of house members on, for starting at 12, going through to say 5 or 6 o'clock. Then it starts raining heavily from 2. You lose all your reservations. Well, this isn't really the time to be saying, look, sorry mate, but I'm not giving you those other 3 hours. There's all these little knock-on effects that I'm sure we'll be able to solve, but we definitely need more information. What are you feeling? Are you thinking that that there's plenty of that it's an easy? It doesn't seem very easy to decipher, in my opinion.
No, it's definitely not, and I agree. I think that there are a lot of questions that people have got, and I think when you're talking about something like outdoor dining, there are so many variables. Of course, there's the weather, as you've spoken of. There's the different physical scenarios that people have got. Every business is different in that regard. So, some people have got undercover, some people haven't. Some people need to put up infrastructure. Other people are lucky enough to have it sorted already. So there are so many things to think about, and there's all the other issues you talk about in terms of how are people going to be allowed to gather, how long are they going to be allowed out. There are so many variables,
but we'll get it done. We'll definitely get it done, because that's what we do. That's the thing, that if anyone gets it done, the hospitality industry, we get it done. To get the sleeves rolled up, get the old tin hat on, and just bash through. We will get it done, but it's definitely going to need. It's definitely going to need careful consideration.
Absolutely. Well, if we look beyond those issues that are going to be with us for the next months, however long it is, and look a little bit further into our crystal ball, how are you feeling about those upper ends of dining? You have another restaurant in the planning in that building that's a more fine dining restaurant. Where do you think is the place for restaurants like that and for those more high end dining experiences?
Look, that is definitely tricky, and I think, to be honest, I think that the industry was already in a transformation. It was already we were already dealing with massive. We're changing the habits of 3 generations. I've been in Australia for I think 7 years. I've been cooking for 16 years. It's probably longer than I was at school, but. But the industry was already changing. We were changing so much. Like when I came to Australia, staging was still extremely common practice. There is big. We've seen everything in these last kind of 7 years through mental health awareness, from wage scandals to a change of mentality, kind of people looking for a better quality of life. But I think what we really haven't done is really look at what that really means. And the knock-on effects. There's really only 2 kinds of restaurants: busy or not busy. That's it. It's one's attacking, one's defending. So the industry was, I think we were still trying to figure out how to do to follow the letter of the law. Like, have you ever looked at the full awards, the actual awards, the restaurant awards industry?
Yeah, I actually have. It's like 96 pages and it's pretty complicated. Yeah.
Yes, it's an absolute tomb. If Woolworths are admitting to annually mispaying people $33 million with the resources and systems those guys have, and they're still saying that they're working through it, then imagine how that is for when you're an owner or operator, when you're a chef, and you've got a small 25, 40 seat place trying to do a tasting menu, you're really pushing it, giving it everything you've got. You just don't have those systems in place, and that's just simple fact. People can dress that up however they want, but that's just the cold hard facts. Deciphering that award is an absolute mission and a half. So I still don't think that conversation was really had, and I don't think that we're finished with that by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, well, the award is one thing, and it certainly gets. I hear it from it's people at every level of the industry that it gets harder and harder to run a profitable business. Do you think, from the diner side of things, Steve, that people are going to be wanting those higher end experiences? I can see it. I'll answer the question myself from my point of view. I can see it going both ways. For a start, you've already mentioned some people at least have got a lot less money to splash around, and they will be looking for value. And I suppose there's value at every level, but they'll be simply looking to spend less. But then at the same time, I think the experiences that we're going to have in restaurants will count more. I think we won't perhaps have as many of them. We'll be a bit choosy about who we socialise with. Perhaps we won't be, interacting with as many people. But I think sometimes those fine dining restaurants that perhaps have a little bit more space, you can be a little less rushed. You can feel like the environment is perhaps more controlled. There aren't as many people coming and going. I can see in a COVID normal world that those experiences could actually become quite popular.
Yeah, I think, and people have missed huge amounts of things. Those restaurants are absolutely fantastic for celebrating. People have missed wedding anniversaries. I'm sure the birthdays, all sorts of celebrations. So they'll definitely have their place for that. And the rich are still rich. There's still going to be plenty of people with disposable income to get them through. But if you look, in terms of going past COVID, and because this isn't just going to go away whenever we get reopened. I'm sure we're going to have to be living with social distancing, all sorts of increased costs due to that as well. So I think that it is going to be definitely tough. But the biggest thing is the chefs and the restaurant people are so far more knowledgeable and have they're so much more far ahead in terms of responsibility for environmental influences, sustainability practices, these things that those kinds of restaurants really lead the light on. That's very important. We don't want to be losing that, because eventually that all filters through into your local cafe. It might sound really ridiculous, but in time, would you have thought there would be someone doing using an espuma gun for you see crazy stuff in cafes. I'm not talking about standard cream whipping where aerated hollandaises. You see that, and it might have been in the fine diners 10 years ago, but it does filter its way through. So I think that the chefs really being aware of these kinds of things is definitely it definitely increases costs and labour. So yes, from a profitability and kind of actually running those high end restaurants, I'm talking about the top of the top. It will be very challenging, but I'm sure it'll be no different to when there was a recession on the previous time. Like I remember when I was a commie chef, this is with the GFC when back in the UK, which we were hit pretty hard there. I was probably only 1 or 2 years into cooking, so I had no idea about what really was going on behind the scenes. But I knew pressure was, I knew the covers had gone down, and the big chef was under mega pressure. We went from using morels to, hydroponically grown oyster mushrooms. The turbot was no longer there; it was place. So we might, that's the only thing. I'm sure we will get back to our best, and long may fine dining continue, because it's magical. It's like that. It's really hard to beat when it's done right. It's really, really hard to beat.
Yeah, I guess it's that Formula One argument, isn't it? Where it's like you need that innovation at the top end, where people are spending, stupid money on trying things out and things that might seem a little bit outlandish, but then they do filter down. And I guess you don't want this massive middle part of the market where it's a sea of burgers and pasta. I mean, bless burgers and pasta, I love them, but you do want people who are noodling around in a more rarefied atmosphere and just trying things out, so that they can be applied in different ways at different levels of the industry. Steve, tell us about some of the restaurants that you've worked in.
Well, I started in Glasgow. I was when I was 16. I was a commie chef for a guy called Brian Moll. He was the chef at Gavroche for 14 years when it was an absolute war zone. So he was a super talented guy. But I got in there at the right time. I was very lucky. I had no idea what was going on. In terms of I remember him interviewing me, and he was like, I think I was getting paid. I think he was like, I can give you $7. I think he was like, I can give you it was $3.80 an hour. Or I can give you a salary, and I think it was something as low as £9,000 a year, pounds sterling, which is like 18.8. So he was just like, look, you know nothing, you have no clue, you're a blank canvas. If you come with me, you definitely learn you learn something. So I went in, and this is back when he was still in that crazy London mentality, but I stayed there for 6 years, because that was back when you didn't just move around sections. You didn't be knocking on the chef's door and going, I've been on the veg section for 3 months. I think I should get a shot on the sauce. That was unthinkable. You moved when he told you were ready. You moved when you stopped getting pulled up for constant little mistakes. So I'd done that for about 6 years. I started with, I worked all the way through the stations, and that was the rule was, if you were on the sauce, he would be on the sauce, you were his commie. So you would be preparing everything for the sauces, extremely fast-paced environment. And then you would cook at lunch, he would cook at dinner. Lunch was actually the more difficult service, but he would be doing bigger jobs like butchery, filleting, while just caning you, non-stop, trying to teach you, because that's the thing is like they are only, at that time he was, the kitchens were built on just what the other people had done. That was the way it worked. You had to cook all the seasons. You couldn't just be on sauce for spring. You had to be there for the glorious 12th. If you didn't do the game season, you hadn't actually been on sauce. The game season was brutal. So that started on August the 12th, which they call the glorious 12th. Starts with grouse, and like they would be in fresh, still warm sometimes, and everyone in the kitchen would be plucking, getting them ready for lunch. And that kind of cooking is just that training, you never forget that, because it was really high pressurized. So then from there, I wanted to. My friend, one of my close friends, he'd went to London, set up. He went to Pied à Terre, which had 2 Michelin stars at the time. I think Shane Osborne, an Australian, was the chef, and he was telling me about the way it worked down there. I'd done some stages. I staged at Gavroche, I think Ledbury at the time. I'd been in a few other places, and I was well aware that it was tough, and I knew myself I wasn't ready to go to London. I wouldn't have actually have survived in one of those 2 Michelin star war zones that they're doing literally like 80 covers for lunch and 80 covers for dinner. Like, they're just so busy. When you're that busy, that's a different environment. When restaurants are really that busy and they're that they work in a very particular way that is really physically demanding, mentally draining, and you need to be tough. And if your skill set is really not fully established, you won't survive. I knew that. I could see that. So I went over to Edinburgh, and I worked in a restaurant called Restaurant Number One. It had one Michelin star. The chef there was a guy called Craig Sandel, and he was exactly what I needed. He was, he was strict, but he was gentle, and he was approachable, and he was an absolute craftsman. I remember saying we used to get these beautiful pigs, suckling pigs in, and he'd say, usually in those days the chefs would be like, do you know how to break this down? And if you said no, they would rip the piss out of you and make you feel like, terrible form of encouragement, like does not work. But this guy was completely different. He was like, come in at Saturday, come in at 7 a.m. Me and you just alone. He spent like 4.5 hours showing you how to break it down. Never made you feel like you were silly or didn't know what you'd done. And then the respect that for ingredients I really saw through this guy. And then I was fortunate there to work with some really top quality chefs. Craig Sandel, actually, he left, and then Billy Boyter took over as the head chef. He now has a great restaurant, another one Michelin star. Super technical guy, very talented. I spent some great time with him. But then I was kind of feeling like I wanted to really test myself somewhere else. I'd been really, I'd actually, the first guy I worked for, we went to New York to represent Scotland at a game dinner. So we went there and I saw New York and I was like, this is unbelievable. He took me to, all sorts of restaurants, Danielle, Bernardin, loads of different bistros. I didn't even have a clue what a Japanese restaurant was. I had no idea what that didn't exist in Glasgow. So I always had that kind of bug. And again, something was turning me off about London. Every time I staged there, I just felt chaotic. It just didn't inspire me. It didn't make me go, you know what, I'm totally prepared to put my life on hold for this. I wasn't really feeling it. Then I started to see 11 Madison Park. Something about the food, the style, I was like, oh God, it's magical. I sent them quite a few emails, just to inquire, just to chance my arm. I had no visa, nothing. I just tried to get an entry in there, and I basically they invited me for a trial. I had pretty much spent my entire life saving. Got a flight, me and my girlfriend, now wife at the time, off we went, I think it was a 2-day stage, really put me through the paces. But when I saw that, I was like, this, I've got to get in here. They make you cook, the trial they done there, they have you cook a dish against another guy who's competing for the same job. So the standard in this place, is really, 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 really top level. Like if you can't handle, for instance, So I'm getting ahead of myself. But basically, I done the cooked the dishes. Got tested out in service, and I was lucky enough. They offered me a job there and then. They sponsored me. So I went back. Told Billy that was it. I was off. He was really happy for me, even though I was the sous chef at the time. He was really happy for me to off we go. So yeah, then I was at 11 Madison Park. Luckily, I don't know if it still exists, but I got the J1 visa, which is I think it was about 15 months you get then, and the next visa after that is 20,000 British pounds. So I knew there was no chance. I knew that was the timeline. I knew I had to learn as much as possible, and that was just such an eye opener. I don't know, even though I loved cuisine and I studied, I really read any cookbook. I saved up all my cash to get cookbooks. Instagram wasn't much of a thing then, so you wouldn't just see what was in other people's restaurants. It wasn't just like, have you heard about this place? Go on, and then just go through a wall of like their portfolio of work. That didn't exist. You had to either go and eat there or stash. So luckily I got a position there, and off I went.
What was a key dish at 11 Madison Park in your time there? A dish that really speaks to what the restaurant's project was.
It runs through their DNA. They have so many signature dishes. Like if you look through their books, I would say it wasn't so much signature dishes or things that really caught my attention. It was actually the systems, the way that they worked. It was like it worked like a seriously well-run organization. There was big hierarchy. The responsibilities were completely cleared out. The approach was not like London, where they're just screaming and bollocking people, and everyone looked wrecked, and everyone's eyes were falling out their heads, and they don't look healthy. And these guys were working 8 to 10 hours, whereas in London it was 18 hours. In the UK it was 18 hours. So these guys are working 10 hours, but those 10 hours were absolutely intense beyond belief. You were literally running. I don't think many people can handle that. Um, because if you think right now, if you think the big shift in the last few years is like 5, 6, 7 years is been getting away from chefs working 60 hours a week, a lot, or even more in a lot of cases, to more condensed 40. But it's not like the restaurants just have got some brand new source of money that then they can just employ another guy. So you're basically shaving 20 hours off the average person's working week. So that, of course, that means that those 8 or 10 hours are going to be far more intense, far more aggressive. And I think that that's the kind of thing that people don't understand with, yeah, sure, you can, the job, cooking is not going to change. Like if you're working in a progressive restaurant where the chef, if, she or he's like thinking, that they're always pushing, they always want to do a good job, like it's going to be intense. Like you're going to have to really work. And there in 11 Madison Park, it was absolute, the amount of mise en place, I've never seen anything like it in my life. Like there was one veg section that everything was made absolutely fresh for that service that day. You started with zero. It was an army. There was about 40 chefs. There was a commie team. Then there was guys who were staging. And then there was people who were on the line. So if you were a paid full-time employee, you were on the line, as they say, or in America, you were actually running a section. But the amount of tasks that had to be done, there was 2 or 3 tastings a day. It wouldn't be uncommon to get absolutely savaged at 5 o'clock, through the tasting by either the chef de cuisine, executive sous chef, or chef patron. Yeah, you could be starting again on 11 sauces at 5 o'clock. And 3-star Michelin environment is absolute. Like if you and this is the thing that I really noticed there, we didn't work crazy amounts of hours there, but the pressure was absolutely the same as doing the mega hours. Like if you were off Sunday and going Monday, by 6 o'clock Sunday, if you were starting there Monday morning, by 6 o'clock Sunday, you were already thinking about Monday morning. Jesus, how am I going to get this done? I need to do this. You're thinking of the mise en place and the rhythm of your head. If you get a big day, like say for instance, the purchasing sous chef sends back half the produce because it's not up to scratch, your timeline just be completely nuked. And you're not just turning around to chef de cuisine during tasting and going, oh, well, I didn't get it to 3 o'clock, chef. So that's not an option. Like there's no screaming and shouting. There's no screaming and shouting in that kitchen. I never saw any craziness. It was simply you could do the job or you couldn't. It was a very business-like transaction. It was either thanks for your service, but it's not quite good enough, or you rose to the challenge. And there was a lot of really, really top quality. Everyone you're working shoulder to shoulder with, from French Laundry or some European heavy-hitting 3 Michelin star restaurant somewhere in Japan, some crazy joint you've never heard of. The caliber of the people you're working with, everyone starts as a commie there. So you were getting guys who were chef de cuisine in a 2 Michelin star restaurant starting as commie with you, and they're running rings around you. So each person is the culture is everyone's motivating everyone. It's so intense that if you're not up to scratch or you're not playing ball, or like for instance, if you're coming in, if you were what a lot of young guys fall into the trap of going out getting smashed then thinking they can do the job. If you're doing that in a place like that, you will not survive. It's impossible, because they just see through it in seconds. You can't physically complete the tasks. So I've gone off tangent slightly, but it wasn't about dishes. The food was unbelievable. You could see that how clean the presentation was, but you could see, you went in the cool room, if there was one thing that wasn't in the correct immaculate, identical container that wasn't alphabetically lined up. It stuck out like a sore thumb. The place was so immaculate. You were shaving twice a day. You know, you were genuinely shaving. You were cleanly shaven and well presented. Like there was no messing around. This was a job where you had to be committed before. It wasn't like I start work at 10 o'clock, I wake up at 11 o'clock. I was living in Harlem, so you weren't to get down to 23rd. You know, that was a bit of a journey. So this was a pure people. Everyone. It felt like everyone who was there wanted to be there, and they were all driving in the same direction. And they had tremendous leadership. Like all the people at the top brass. You know, Chef James Kent, Brian Lockwood, Dimitri, Connie Chung, unbelievable pastry chef, and Angela Pinkerton. You know, these people were big chefs in their own right, all working under this one thing. It was an absolute privilege to be there. Like some days I felt I should have been paying them, because the things that I was learning is every technique is so well considered that I still rely on many of the organizational structures that I saw there. Like it was pretty inspiring. It was a must do.
Wow. And did you come straight from there to Vue de Monde in Melbourne?
Well, yeah. Well, you know, there was actually a bit of heartache in the 11 Madison Park story. So me and my wife had went to get both tried to get visas. My visa was actually accepted. We thought her work visa was rejected, but then we thought she would have been able to get across on a different kind of visa. However, so I was waiting for her at JFK, only to get the phone call that she was not allowed to enter America. So we were apart for a year, which was really, really tough. And she had already given me so much in terms of when you're a chef, your partner your partner really goes through the ringer. They're really backing you 100%. Because you're not there at night, there's lots of things you miss out. The restaurant, really takes a lot for you. So does all the other things. So I returned from my year, and then I went back to, win her back in Glasgow. Stuck around for Glasgow, and I actually went back to my old chef and helped him out for 3 months. Well, he had some knee problems and he was taking some time off. So I actually got a wee chance to go back there and hang out there for 3 months. We originally came to Australia thinking we were going to. We originally came to Australia thinking that we were going to go traveling. Thought I'd be in Melbourne for 3 or 4 months. One of my good friends was here, and we thought we'd be here for a couple of months, and then end up in Japan or someone else. I was still sending CVs to all over the globe, trying to crazy. I was sending CVs to places like Japan and Brazil, never knowing where we're going, but I always wanted to be working in the best possible place that I could get in. And then, however, I came to Melbourne and I was like, whoa, this is we really started to settle in. And yeah, I was at Vue de Monde pretty much straight away. I think I was here for 2 weeks. Met Shannon, Corey, and a few other of the kind of top guys, and I ended up I ended up there for a good period of time. Had some great times up there, and that's where I really started to fall in love with Melbourne and in Australia. And a bit now I've been here about 7 odd years.
Wow, Steve. I mean, what you're talking, all the stuff you're saying about the training that you had and the plucking the grouse and those, the alphabetized containers, 11 Madison Park. I mean, all of that, I suppose, just goes back to what we were talking about earlier and how valuable it is to have that incredible grounding and to have those great mentors and to have people who are taking cuisine so seriously and really finding the art in it and finding the possibilities for development and taking it further and further. Makes me feel lucky to have you here in Melbourne, and even more keen for you to be able to reopen when it's safe to do so, when you've had a chance to read through whatever regulations are put in front of us. But yeah, we will have to get you back on the show to continue telling your Australian story and to see where Omnia is at and what you're able to do with the asparagus, if it's still in season when you're allowed to open.
Well, we're definitely not going to be quitting or giving up. That's for sure. We'll definitely be scrapping all, non-stop to get back up and running.
Yeah, I know you will. Thank you so much for having a chat to us today, Steve. Really, really great to talk to you. Thank you.
No problem. Great.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about. We spend a week thrashing around each issue, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtyLinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This is a Deep in the Weeds production.
This is the part of the podcast where someone comes to the door and my dog goes crazy. So we're lucky enough to have these special interludes every few times that I record.